Welcome to our webinar on buying property in Spain as part of our Retire Abroad virtual roadshow. Today we aim to give you an idea of some of the issues you should consider when buying in Portugal. We have three people who know all about it to help you. I'm Nigel Ayres. I run Expat Network. I've lived in Hong Kong, Malaysia, the US, and for the last 3.5 years in Spain. Before we start, perhaps I just ask you to note that we are here to help. Basically, we'll answer any questions you may have. If you want to use the button on your screen to put any questions, we'll answer as many of those as we can during the course of the webinar. Any we miss, we'll send you an email after the event answering your question. So if you have any questions after the event, if you need referral to one of our panelists or any other members of our network, just drop us an email at expats@expatnetwork.com and we'll get back to you. Okay, so perhaps if we could start by asking people to introduce themselves, and well, let's go reverse of the traditional and we'll go the gentleman first. Nigel.
Hi everybody, it's Nigel Salmon here. I'm the Managing Director of Duracell Homes. Durasol's now in its 18th year. I'm feeling the age, and basically we have probably fine-tuned our offering in the last sort of few years since Brexit, and we now cover, I suppose, Costa Blanca South, which is southern Alicante. Joanne, who you'll speak to in a minute, deals with the northern Costa Blanca. We deal with Murcia as well, Granada. We've got a good team in Granada, and basically we also deal with Huelva on the Portuguese borders too. So that's our offering. We've helped loads of people safely move to Spain, and obviously sold people's houses moving back to the UK and Europe. So any questions, we feel we're fairly well equipped to answer those as well. And if we don't know, we'll know somebody who does.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Rona, if I could ask you to introduce you.
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Rona Hutchinson. I'm Managing Director of Keystone Property Finders. I've actually been relocating and property finding people for 20 years, although I've worked in Spanish property for, I hardly dare say, over 40 years. So I know a lot of the ins and outs of how the property market works, and also an awful lot about actually people relocating, documents that they might need, helping with schools, whatever it is they need locally, and apart from obviously orientating people as to where they might ideally be, might be best suited for them to live in the area. I'm fluent in Spanish. I was born and brought up in Argentina, so English and Spanish, neither is a problem to me, and I'm very happy to help everyone.
Okay, thanks, Rona. And last but by no means least, Joanne and Emma.
Hi, thanks, Nigel. Hi, everybody. My name's Joanne Alderton, and I'm the owner of Aldertons, who are a relocation service based in the Alicante province, from Alicante City up to Valencia City. We cover that coastline. We have been in operation for the past 10 years now. And prior to that, I have lived, like you, Nigel, all over the world. So I am very experienced in picking up and packing your bags and setting up in a new area. Both Emma and I are, along with other members of my team, are all fully qualified in Spanish immigration. So we're best placed to help you and make sure that you've got the correct visas, correct paperwork, correct importation documentation for anything you're bringing through. And very much like Rona, we concentrate on making sure you are orientated to the right location that fits your needs. And then we can start with the property search for you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. One of the things that I think people have done, many people will have a clear idea of how to buy a home in the UK. Sorry, I won't start there. Forgive me, I'm losing myself. One of the things that I found in the registrations was that some people have chosen a specific area that they clearly have decided they're going to move to, but quite a large number have placed either all the regions of Spain, or indeed some cases many countries. Now today we're focused on Spain, but it would perhaps be useful if we could get an idea of, the the attractions of each of the different regions, and what would draw people to your region, and what is the current state of the market? How easy is it to buy in those areas? Prices moving up and that sort of thing. So perhaps if we start in the south with Costa del Sol, Rena, could you take off that?
Yes, well, as a region, the Costa del Sol is as most people know, very, very popular. Golf is one of the top sports offers in the area, but there are many other sports facilities. The weather, the climate is good. Generally speaking, today we would call a bit nippy, but it's probably about 12, 13 degrees, so that's not very cold for many of you. The property market actually down here is pretty buoyant. There's a lot of new product coming on the market, but prices are definitely going up. They've gone up considerably over the last year. And I would say the market is still going up. We've got a way to go before things level out a bit. And yes, it's very buoyant.
Okay. And what are the different areas within the Costa del Sol that people tend to sort of focus on when they're moving to the Costa del Sol?
It varies very much. And when we talk about the Costa del Sol, we talk about slightly inland as well, sort of maybe 45 minutes maximum, an hour's drive. The Marbella, Estepona, Sotogrande area is very popular. It is also the more expensive end of the Costa del Sol. Malaga and Eastwood is cheaper, and one's able to buy a lot more, get a lot more for their money, both in the way of actually a house or property and land. Further inland, a lot of people actually choose to live in what they call real Spain, which is a lovely idea. But I think certainly when one's thinking of retiring to Spain, real Spain, so-called right in the depths of the inland, is not such a clever idea, because for a start, the language is very important, particularly as one gets older. And medical facilities, one definitely needs to consider having medical facilities close at hand for oneself and also for guests when they come down visiting. It's very important for them. But certainly medical facilities on the coast are very good. And very plentiful. We also have a very good emergency service, which I don't know whether it's available further up the coast, which is an emergency call-out service, where they'll actually send out an ambulance to you and your guests and get you to hospital if needed. So medically, we're very well equipped down here, and sports-wise and weather-wise, we certainly can't complain.
Yes, well, nobody's going to complain about the weather, I think. Moving up next to the sort of Murcia and southern Costa del Sol, Costa Blanca. Nigel, perhaps you could give us a flavour of your area.
Yeah, well, I've actually we've also got Huelva on the Portuguese borders. That's been particularly popular over the last 2 years because it looks like good value because there's no international airport there. And what you have there, we call that a sort of Spanish Algarve, really, where there's sort of Costa de la Luz, where there's obviously unsport beaches. It's a little less developed than say Costa Blanca South, which is southern Alicante and Murcia, where there's a lot of development going on there too. And as Rona mentioned, the prices have gone up so much in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years. I really can't see that changing because the cost of materials has obviously gone up as well. So, and as Rona said too, obviously the closer you get to the coast, it's a little bit more developed than sort of buying something in very inland, which obviously you will then notice the seasons. It will be quite a lot more warmer in summer and quite a lot cooler in winter too. So again, it just depends on what people are going for. But obviously the value for money, if people go inland, is slightly better than obviously if you're at the coast. So yeah, I mean, the market's been really good for the last 2 years or so. Obviously the demographic of buyers has changed slightly since Brexit and exchange rates and things like that too. So it's very much more international than perhaps what we've seen in the last sort of decade, I guess. But it still has its draw. I mean, as you know, it's about 4 degrees here in West Wales at the moment, so pretty chilly. So yeah, I'm yearning for a bit of sunshine, a bit of light, and a bit of warmth. So that's got to be the draw. And obviously, the southeast corner of Spain is particularly good for the winter too. And obviously, it's fairly well communicated with airports and networks and roads. And obviously Spain is very well joined up by motorways and railway too. So, but yeah, the area, and obviously we deal with Granada too. That's a slightly different area. Obviously, coastal Granada is a bit more like Costa del Sol. Inland Granada is, as Rona said earlier, pretty Spanish as well. You probably need to learn the language there. But again, we've seen good success in the last 18 months or so. Certainly some of the bigger houses, the sort of old farmhouses and things like that too. And again, we'll talk about it later, but obviously you've got to do your research on these properties and make sure you're not buying a dud as well.
Okay. Well, thanks, Nigel. Joanne, the Costa Blanca North and so on, could you give us a flavour?
Yeah, the flavour's paella. Costa Blanca North is a very well-established area, very much like the Costa del Sol. It's one of the most popular areas to move to. Most people, or a lot of people, will think Costa Blanca North is Benidorm. And in actual fact, very few Brits that actually buy in Benidorm. They go on holiday to Benidorm, but our busiest areas by a country mile are places like Moraira, Javier, Denia. They are so popular, Calpe, etc. The area here, it's very well established. Like I said, there's a great infrastructure that runs throughout this region, including healthcare and assistance should times get more difficult as you get older over here. So it's a very safe area to move to. Weather-wise, pretty much the same as the rest of the coastal areas of Spain. I'd say you're 4 degrees in Wales at the moment, Nigel, and we're unfortunately only 12 degrees here in the Costa Blanca North. That's one of our 2 or 3 days, which we have to suffer every now and again. Normal service will resume very soon, and that big bright yellow thing will be out in the sky, and we'll be in our short sleeves again, so we'll be happy. But yeah, I mean, moving to this area, it's always been a popular area, touching on house prices, anything from 50,000 up to 15 million. There literally is everything in between. But we have seen a huge increase in prices, especially post-Brexit and post-COVID. That there's been a massive influx of Northern Europeans to this area. So previously, you would always see the Brits buying in droves over here. Now we're seeing a huge amount of Belgians and Dutch buying in this area, as well as Norwegians and Danish. It's very multicultural, very multinational, and we're seeing a huge increase in Americans coming over as well. So it's a wonderful place to be. And as I say, paella. What more can we say?
Okay, thank you, Joanne. It's I would say that having lived in Javier for the last 3.5 years, the number of Dutch number plates you see is just seems to get ever more and more. So one of the things is that people tend to think that as the Brits are buying less, or potentially buying slightly less, that the Spaniards will be determined to let us in by every means possible. But the reality is that there are many other nationalities moving in droves, so to speak. So there isn't that pressure at all. So in terms of then buying in Spain, what sort of advice would you give people on how to go about finding a property in Spain? So one of the things obviously is you have portals like Rightmove, Quiero.com and Spain, and Think Spain, I think it is, and various others. Do they have a role, and how would you advise people to sort of really begin their search? Well, let's go with Joanne. Joanne, that one.
So we act as search agents, as buyers agents or property finders. There's various different names that people can call us. And my biggest piece of advice is location, location, location. When you're thinking of moving to Spain, you have to be honest with yourself about what you're planning on doing. Everyone has the idea that they will be, cafe culture, and I'm going to learn the language and I'm going to do this. But in reality, take a look at yourself as you are right now. What do you like doing? Do you like walking the dog? Do you like watching Coronation Street? Do you like playing chess online with people all over the world? Whatever it is you like doing, those things will not stop. They won't cease to continue just because you're moving to a different country. So you'll still want to do those things. So we need to find locations that are going to fit in with you and your lifestyle and your wants. We also need to look at infrastructure in the area, as Rona said earlier, making sure that when you are getting on and later on in life, that the infrastructure there is going to help you should things go a little bit awry. So should you fall and break your ankle or something like that, that the medical facility there is going to be able to help you, and that there's a support network that can speak to you in your own language. Because in times like that, if you haven't got fluent Spanish, it's always better to have someone that can actually translate for you. And there's plenty of help. There's a company called Help over here, associations and things that can help you out in those times. But yeah, location. Spend time. Just because you've been on holiday somewhere, it's a very different beast to actually move there and live there. So spend time investigating more about the area, and always do a comparison. If you're in love with Torrevieja, that doesn't mean to say you can't check Calpe out or Estepona. Check 3 different or 4 different areas out, spend time, not just 2 weeks, maybe a month in each place in a short-term rental, and find out more about the lifestyle there, and take on somebody that's in that area that can actually show you around. Invest in the right agent for you, the property agent, that's the buyer's agent that's going to look after you and work in your interests. Take that time, because then you're going to get the complete black and white side of what the area is that you're moving into. That is the most important thing you can.
Okay, Nigel, we've got Joanne and Rona here, both of whom function as property finders and don't sell property, whereas you work on both sides of the transaction. What advice would you give people in terms of finding the right property?
Yes, as Joanne said, do your research, ask lots of questions. Yeah, it's really important that we get frustrated. We get quite a lot of people who come out and they haven't really spent the time they need before they come out as well. So I mean, it's really important that you sort of interrogate your host to a certain extent, and basically make sure that you've got all your questions answered. Because you're right. I mean, you might see a property which has got 10,000 square meters of land, and it looks like Dallas in Spain, and you get out there and it really is, you can hear the dogs barking, and it's the wrong area. It's not going to be suitable for you. Yeah, it's really different. Yeah, you need to, you're relocating, you're buying a property in a foreign country. You should probably look at it that way. Yes, you may have holiday there for the last 20 years or so, but you probably weren't really paying attention. So healthcare, so speaking the language, all that stuff is really important. So again, find a good agent who's stood the test of time, got good recommendations and reviews, and basically pick them. I mean, we can't win them all. There's thousands of property transactions every month in Spain, but obviously your money's your money, it's your life savings probably, and you can't really afford to make the wrong choice. So you've got to be really, really thorough in what you actually do in terms of picking one.
Yes, Nigel. So people will be familiar with the sort of estate agent role in the UK. Could you perhaps explain how that differs in Spain, the role of the estate agent in Spain, the property agent in Spain?
I know both sides very well. Obviously, in the UK, buyers tend to come to you. There's less properties on the market. So effectively, if I list a property in the UK, I'll have it probably as a sole agent for a period of weeks, and effectively the buyers surround me. Obviously in Spain, most people have got access to most of the properties because it's sort of more like an American multi-listing system too. So properties, you've got probably too much choice. It's an enormous smorgasbord of property to look at, which can be bewildering. I think Spain and Quiero and the portals like Rightmove and Zoopla will have their part to play. However, you need to be quite forensic in what you want to do, whether obviously you want to walk the dog along the beach, things like that too. That would be a different type of property if that's what you're expecting to do every week or every day. So it's in Spain, you really have to, as I said, identify the area. The property portals are useful, but they're not sort of exhaustive. And again, quite a lot of property might have been on there for a long time as well. So yeah, you need to ask the right questions, and lots of them really. So it's a different relationship with the agents, like my team in Spain, and obviously Rona and Joanne. yeah, we'll be asking lots of questions, and we expect you to ask lots of questions too.
And do you support them beyond, if you like, the?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's there's always going to be something. So I mean, you need to have the right agent. You need to definitely have the right lawyer. That's really important. And you know, you need to surround yourself with a team of professionals. If you've got a really good currency contact, I mean, we've worked with the same people for 18 years. You know, you're probably going to need them for regular payments and things like that too. So all the same people tend to appear. You know, the people reporting for your taxes. You know, silly question department, things like that too. It's, you know, as long as you don't change your number, people will call you.
Yeah. Okay, so Jan, you offer property finding services rather than operating as a property agent. Could you explain how this works to people who are probably less familiar with that? Joanne, yes, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, so as a property finder, we offer we work on behalf of the buyer and only the buyer. So we invest a lot of time before you even arrive out, finding out the absolute nitty gritty of everything that you're up to suggest areas to research first. And the journey starts with an orientation tour. For me, one of the biggest things, or the first hurdles to overcome, is to get you guys at home to understand that it isn't just about the property portals and thinking that you're moving to, or you're going to look in Murcia, or you're going to look in Costa del Sol, or you're going to look in Javier, for example, because they've seen the houses and that's the price range that you're in. Every area has different price ranges, and as I said earlier, it's about the location. So the first step of the journey when you're with us is to go out and we look at areas. We look at things like, what are the medical facilities in that area? What's the internet connectivity like in that area? What's the demographic of people that live in that area? What languages are spoken within the town hall? How can you pick your lifestyle up and move it into that area? And if it ticks all the boxes, then we start looking at the property in that area. And then that's my job, it's Emma's job, and the other guys that I have in the office. We'll pull together a list of properties that are available that match the criteria that your dream is. And then we'll take you through the doors of those properties, and you'll soon realize, oh, actually, no, I want something completely different. It happens all the time, and that's absolutely fine. That's our job, to push you into, or to guide you into the right location and the right property that's going to suit your lifestyle. Having a property finder on your side, we will help with, a lot of the time we cut out a lot of the faff. We know the market, we live in this area, we know the area like the back of our hands, and we work with all of the agents, including lawyers who are dealing with inheritances, architects that are dealing with new builds, etc., developers, not just a list of estate agents or realtors that are in this area. So by doing that, we have access to the full range of properties, banks as well, repos, if there's any available in that area, and we can find what's going to suit you. It also means that we know the right questions to ask for the right property that we're walking through. So for example, Nigel touched on before a country property with 10,000 meters squared of land. That's absolutely right, and they come with their own list of things, of pitfalls that you can fall into. We need to look at, is the property on land that's less than 10,000 meters squared in this area, in which case you can't build, it might not be registered. So that's our job, to help you, guide you through, and we find out those right questions before making an informed offer on a property that grabs your heart. Once we've done that, we'll help you find the right lawyer that's going to work for you, independent of any selling agency or developer, and that's experienced in the area that you're going to be working or going to be living in, and also that's experienced in the type of property that you're going to be buying in, because many properties have their own individual laws and bylaws within these areas, and we want someone that's experienced. So some lawyers are better experienced at dealing with new builds, other lawyers are better experienced at dealing with finca properties in rustic areas, etc. Then from on there, we then add like a hand-holding service, a concierge service, so that on hand for you at all times within the first year or two after you've moved over here, we're that person at the end of the phone. Joe, what's this? I've got this letter through. Don't worry, we'll translate it for you. We'll sort it out. We'll make sure that everything's registered. We'll make sure you've got the right visas in place for when you're moving over here. We'll make sure that absolutely everything is hunky-dory, so you can enjoy your life over here and nothing's going to come and bite you on the bum and give you a nasty surprise further down the line. That's our job, and we want to make friends with you as a property agent, as a property finder. We want to be your friend. We want you to tell the world about us. We want to be sat in the town square having that carver with you or that red wine, enjoying the tapas, and just literally seeing you enjoy your life. That's the best thing that we can do in our job, is see you move over here and settle into your new lifestyles. Those smiles that we see on our clients' faces, can't tell you how satisfying that is.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Rona, so I don't know whether you've got anything to add to that, but when I was just wondering, when people are arranging their viewing trips to come to Spain, how would you recommend people go about that to make sure they get the most effective use of that obviously limited time?
Well, I think really, to go back to the question of portals, they are useful. And they are useful from the point of view of sort of exchanging ideas, styles, and so forth. But one has to be very aware that photographs on a website can be very deceptive. There's a lot of use of wide angle lenses and a lot of dressing. And so one really needs to be a little bit careful about that. And also, if there isn't a view, then you'll see there isn't a view on the website, so you can be pretty sure there isn't a view at all. So there's got to be plenty else that'll make up for that. As I say, if exchanging details from a distance is very useful to build up a picture. It's very important for us as relocators, as property finders, to build up a very clear picture of what the client wants. We also need to know what you, the client, need, based also on where you live abroad at the moment, where your home country is, what your surroundings are, where you live now, what you're comfortable with now, because a lot of that will actually be what you need when you move to Spain. It won't be identical, but you will need a lot of those facilities, a lot of the things that make you tick at home. You have to bring them with you, and we have to find them for you here. So it's very important to be exchanging views a lot at a distance between your home country and Spain, so that by the time you get to Spain, as property finders, we have a very good idea of what you're looking for, and we can really prepare a good shortlist of properties which we have mostly and wherever possible have visited ourselves, so that we can actually tell you and not waste your time when you actually get over to Spain. We try really to maximize on the time that you have available when you come to Spain, so you're not being shown a lot of properties within the same price bracket, but of which most of them or many of them won't suit. There's more than just the price. It's the environment, as Joanne says. It's the demographics, it's the facilities, the infrastructure. So much is involved with moving what's going to be your home in Spain, may be it full-time or not. It has to be a place that you really feel as comfortable in Spain as you do in your home in your home country.
Okay, thanks. Joanne and Nigel, was there anything you'd like to add there in terms of making sure that people get the most out of those viewing trips?
Yeah, it will depend on the area as well, and again, and it will depend on whether you're going to be there full time or not full time as well. So again, there'll be a different set of questions and different set of answers for either. But again, just don't be afraid to ask. I mean, it's a movable feast at the moment as well. Obviously, since Brexit, the laws changed, etc. as well. So there's plenty of stuff to bear in mind. How you're going to look after yourself, health insurance, things like that too. So again, all of this is super important that you get all of that sorted out. And again, what we do as well is that obviously we're quite happy to go live at a development or a property and do a quick video as well, things like that too. So ask for that, because it could rule it in or rule it out. I mean, that helps us too, because obviously we want to be as ready as we can when you actually arrive in Spain, whether that's in southern Costa Blanca, Murcia, Granada, wherever it might be. You know, that again, they're completely different properties. But again, you'll find out if the agent doesn't want to help you or doesn't want to do that, then they're sort of ruling themselves out, really.
Yeah, and just to add to that, by investing your time now into finding the right person that's going to help you on this side of the pond, that's one of the best investments you can make, because what you're doing there is putting down on the time you're explaining your story, your wants, your needs, your requirements 10, 15, 20 times to different people who will interpret it differently. By investing in myself and Rona and Nigel, you're going to find that we are working with you. We become friends throughout the entire process. We get to know each other and we can make informed decisions on your behalf before you arrive out here. We know the market and you need to have that trust in us that we're looking out for your best interests. So we'll be able to say, you're not even going to look at that house. It's on the wrong side of the mountain. It's in the shade. It's absolutely not going to be worth what you're after. So I know it looks great on Rightmove, but it's got a cross through it. And you need to trust us because we want you to be happy at the end of it.
Okay, thanks. I think I would just sort of emphasize that, you know, if you're making a viewing trip, time is limited, and you need to get a good flavour. The service of an individual agent gets past the fact that there are numerous agents in every town in the sort of costas of Spain, and so each property you may have to go to sort of 5 agents to see 5 different properties. You spend so much time doing that it will be an inefficient use of your time. Whereas if you've spoken in advance to the likes of Joanne, Rona and Nigel, then they will do that research for you and make it much more efficient. Personally, when I was looking at renting first, I arranged it myself, and I was going from one to the next and trying to coordinate which one would be available at what time and so on, and it all became quite hectic. So it is well worth choosing somebody that you feel that you can get on with, who understands the requirements, and make sure that they actually listen to what you're saying and take you to the sort of places you're interested in, and that can be most effective. So one of the things, there's a number of people who are like buying a property which they intend to live in a part of the year rather than as part of their retirement, rather than coming over full time, and then to let it out the rest of the time. Clearly, there is a very good market to that, and that can be very profitable. But what are the regulations around letting out your property, either a holiday home, Airbnb, and so on? Rona, could you perhaps cover that?
Well, quite simply, you've got to have all your papers absolutely squeaky clean and in order, and you've got to register your property as a property for tourist lets, for holiday lets. If you don't, you can come badly unstuck, and the penalty can be pretty hefty. So as it is, if you're non-resident, you do have to pay a small tax, which is based on a sort of notional rent that you might get if you were letting your property. So you pay a small annual tax anyway. And if you are letting the property, you're far better off just to keep it all above board, have the right permits, and then you know that you can just keep everything straight. There's nothing to worry about. If you start letting without making it official, without registering properly, you can come badly unstuck tax-wise, and it's just not worth the aggro.
Okay, thanks. So let's move on to mortgages. I think the majority of people who are retiring abroad traditionally have, either funded it through their personal savings, through the sale value of their UK property, or remortgaging it if they have it. But some people need either a small or even a larger mortgage to get it. How easy is it for people to get a mortgage, particularly if they're getting on, shall we say, like us, like me, sorry, not all of you. And what are the age restrictions in terms of being able to obtain a mortgage? Joanne, perhaps you could take that one.
Yeah, well, certainly it's not difficult per se to get a mortgage in Spain. It just depends on your individual circumstances, exactly like in your home country. So obviously you need to qualify. That will mean that you have enough disposable income to be able to afford the property. What we do find over here is that most of the major banks will allow you to borrow on a 70 to 30% loan to value. You will also be allowed to borrow up to the age of 75 years of age, in some cases up to 80, we've had recently. But we find here that the majority of our clients are actually cash purchasers. So very few will actually apply for a large mortgage. We may find that some of our clients, a lot of the housing stock here is very established and might need a bit of renovation when you buy it, certainly to put your own stamp on it. So in order to get the right property in the right area, you might want a smaller mortgage so that you can pay for those renovation works, because the banks don't tend to like lending on renovation work. They like to give you a mortgage. So take a mortgage out and keep some of your cash back in order to do the renovation work on the property. But certainly as far as applying for the mortgage in the banks here, it's not too much of a difficulty. All of us will have contacts in our respective areas where we work in as to people, mortgage advisors or bank managers themselves, who can help you with going down that route. But as a general rule, they'll look to make sure that the repayments aren't any more than 33% of your disposable income, pardon me, on a monthly basis. So, but yeah, certainly up to the ages of 75, they will take into account any pensions and any dividends that you draw down as well from other things. So there's lots of options. There's also, for smaller amounts of money, there are also, rather than banks, going to some of the financing companies over here as well, where you can get better rates and much easier to release that equity as well. So I'll release those funds as well.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. So, Rona, is it easy to go direct to the banks, or is it best to use a broker, a mortgage broker?
Well, it's easy enough to go direct to the banks, but obviously a mortgage broker will cut out a lot of the legwork for you, and also can guide you pretty well in the direction of what may be more available to you. But yes, you can go direct. You'll still be asked for the same information. As I say, it just cuts out a lot of the legwork. What I would add to what Joanne says is that, in my view, a lot of people actually think, oh, well, we'll take out a mortgage, buy a property, take out a mortgage, and we'll let it, and then we can service the mortgage with the rentals. No, I never advocate that, because things can go wrong. Whatever it is, a property crash or there can be any number of reasons why a property won't let as much as you expect it to cover the mortgage. So I definitely do not recommend that anyone consider taking on a mortgage on that basis.
Okay, thank you. One of the things to mention also is when you're buying a property, in whatever way you're buying it, there's always going to be an exchange risk. One of the things is you're going to have to transfer the money across. I'm not sort of promoting any individual one, but generally speaking, the specialist foreign exchange brokers and so on are much more effective way of transferring money. There's also the exchange rate risk, the time between you making the offer and the time you're actually going to make the payment. What happens if the exchange rate goes against you? And if you use those brokers, then they will be able to do sort of forward contracts and other options and so on to help you to manage that. And then when you get to the mortgage repayments, if your income is in sterling and your liability is in euros, again, you've got that exchange rate risk on an ongoing basis. So I would just sort of advocate people thinking about the foreign exchange specialists. There are people like Wise, there's people like Currency Index, there's all sorts of them. And if you go to a place in the sun, for instance, you will find there are normally half a dozen foreign exchange providers sort of there providing things. Sorry, you're saying they're no longer there?
Go to a place in the sun now, they only have one currency provider who is their preferred currency provider, so the choice has been taken out of your hands. Be very, very wary of that.
That's true, because and that one is a place in the sun currency.
Yeah.
In fact, the reason I made that comment was that the first time I went to a place in the sun, I was talking from a business point of view rather than moving abroad, and I spoke to a number of the foreign exchange providers, and I remember one of them saying to me, he was fed up with people coming up to him and saying, "Oh, another foreign exchange provider. What makes you different?" and so obviously a place in the sun have seen that opportunity. So they're perfectly good and organization, and we do have a relationship with them. I'm not saying they're better than anybody else, but they are perfectly fine, and there are many good ones out there. So it's just a matter of, generally speaking, it's going to be better and cheaper than the banks because they have a lower margin.
Yeah, 100%. It's always better to use the currency company than it is the banks. They'll save you so much money in fees and receipt fees, etc. And like you said, yes, a place in the sun have just gone to one provider now, which is a bit of a monopoly. It's not very fair, but there are plenty of currency companies out there. I would always say look for one that maybe has an office near where you're planning on moving to, or somebody. I'm a big believer in people. I like to work with people and speak to people and see faces. So if you've got a currency advisor that's in the area that you're going to be and they have a person on the ground, that's a great thing, because many times they'll actually be there at the purchase of the property, making sure that the money transfer is handed over with the correct documentation, etc. So it's just nice, more contacts for you, more people to actually touch and feel. Rather than everything being in the cloud these days.
Yeah, they need to be part of your team, because you're going to have them for the rest of if you've still got money coming in, you're going to need to have somebody you can work with. We've worked with people for 18 years and they're really good friends. But again, there's a few companies which have gone down over the last few years too. So again, you've got to do your research and make sure that you're getting a great rate, and that's sort of really important. Obviously, exchange rates are always one of those things you think, I could have got a better rate, you could always do that, but the rate's actually been dragging along about between 110 to 118, the range for absolutely ages now. So it shouldn't really change a huge amount, because obviously the fundamental economy in the UK is quite weak. But again, very important. I'm sure all of us can recommend somebody anyway, but it's important to get the right people, as has been mentioned before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So let's move on to the sort of buying process. If having found the property, obtained your mortgage approval if required, and you're ready to make an offer, what happens next, Joanne?
I'm just unmute myself, sorry. Right, so you're ready to make an offer. Well, it varies from autonomous community to autonomous community. Various different processes happen in different regions. So, for example, just within the area I work in the Valencian community, from the Alicante region, so from Alicante City up to Javier, Pego, Oliva, Moreira, etc. You would be expected to pay a reservation fee to take that property off sale. That would normally be around €5,000. Now that €5,000 is refundable most of the time, unless you're just deciding you don't want to, you just want to take it off sale, but you're just not serious. In that case, you can't just keep putting money down, getting it back, and somebody's losing the opportunity to sell the house to other people. But obviously we're here to guide you through that, and we wouldn't let you put that money down unless you were in the right position. Once you put that money down, it takes the property off sale, and that's when you start to find the right legal advice, the right legal team, the lawyer that's going to help you with the conveyancing. Now, obviously, we know the process inside out here, so we're going to make sure that that lawyer is on the straight and narrow, and that is going to be getting all the correct documentation in for what's required as well. They will do the conveyancing, and the lawyer will always put in writing to you then, yep, we're happy for you to go ahead with this. It's free of encumbrances. We need to get these certificates. We've applied for this. We've applied for that. It will complete on such and such a date. And they will draw up what's called the ARAS contract. Now, the ARAS contract is the equivalent of the exchange contract in the UK. And basically that means that you are then entering into a bona fide sales agreement. At that point, that contract is legally binding. And if you pull out of the sale from that point, well, at that point, you are legally bound to pay an ARAS fee, which is 10% here of the fee of the actual amount that you're purchasing the property for. If you decide to pull out once that fee has been paid and the contract is signed, you're going to lose the full 10%. But if the seller pulls out after that point, then the seller will reimburse you the 10%, but also reimburse you a further 10% as compensation. So it very, very rarely gets to a non-sale once you've got to the harass contract stage. When you're at harass contract, the legal advisor who's drawn up the contract will put a date for completion in there. Now you can set that for anything up to 1 year in advance, which happens quite often here, as somebody might buy a house that's got tenants in it, or it might have holiday rentals in it up until the end of September or something like that. So there's always time frames to put in place within that harass contract. And then that means that before that end date, you must have completed. That's obviously we're in contact with you, and the legal advisor will be in contact with you throughout all of that as well. Once you get to completion, you then have to pay the full amount, and you'll get what's called an escritura, which is the deed of sale from that property, and that's what's put into the land registry over here. When you purchase the property, or when you put an offer in, bear in mind in my region here that you have to pay an extra 10% purchase tax on top of the fee you're paying for the property. So that's 10% on top. And then there are other fees to take into consideration as well, such as notary, legal fees, moving fees. We always say here, 15% on top of what you offer will cover you for all your fees. You should have money left over. If you don't budget that 15%, you could come unstuck. So it's always wise to budget the 15%.
Okay, thank you. Rona, perhaps could you explain the role of the notary in Spain, which is probably, again, something people are less familiar with?
Yes, well, the whole completion process in Spain is very different in that when you complete in the UK, you never get to actually see or meet the vendors because it's all handled by your solicitor. In Spain, the notary actually is in charge of drawing up the title deed, which will be signed by both parties before the notary, either in person or with a power of attorney. So the notary will also be involved in seeing that there are no outstanding debts on the property, there are no liens on the property, so that everything is clear and you know exactly what you're buying, and you're not taking on anybody else's mortgage or anybody else's tax debts, be they local tax or community charges or anything. So that the notary will make sure that all that is cleared before you sign. And then they will draw up the document which both parties will sign, and they will then send the title deed for registration at the land registry. It can be done by your property finder, it can be done by your lawyer, but normally it's done through the notary's office. So you know that when you sign, everything is taken care of, and you're going to get a clean and clear title on your property.
Okay, thanks, Rona. And Rona mentioned the power of attorney there. Nigel, how important is a power of attorney? Is it something that people should be wary of, or that they should embrace?
It's quite normal. If you're not going to be there, obviously you'll get a power of attorney, and that person can make decisions on your behalf and can sign on your behalf. But you have to be fairly specific about what they can sign for, and about what you're going to let them do for you as well. But yeah, quite normal. And again, when you buy a property in Spain, you'll have a little army of people who'll do things for you. This is one of them. They're probably the chief of the army, but it's an important person. So again, it just depends on your circumstances. If you're going to be there completing yourself, and obviously you're going to go for the completion parties, we call it, when you sit in the same room as the people who are selling you the property. It's quite unusual. That's something you don't normally see in the UK, but yeah, quite normal, and obviously in many cases necessary to do that. And also they can do other things as well. They can incorporate you in a company. They do all sorts of things, the notary. So yeah, useful part of the team. Again, it's your team.
Yeah. Okay, apologies for disappearing every now and again. My camera seems to be playing up a little, so I just reset it. So the other thing that I've got a question here about surveys in Spain. Is it normal practice to have a survey in Spain? Rona, could you answer that?
It's not normal practice to have a survey in Spain. You can have them done. It always is practice if you're going to ask for a mortgage. The bank will insist on having a survey made. So, and the surveys really in this country are not as in depth as they are in the UK. Basically, they will look for any serious damage to a property. But a lot of it is really based on the market value at the time. So you will always need a survey if you're going to ask for a mortgage. Many people buy a property here in Spain without a survey. You can have an architect look at it. You can have whatever checks you like done on it for your own interest. And yes, there are people actually in Spain who do carry out surveys on a UK style of service, which is obviously very useful if you're buying a property which looks as if it could have some potential structural damage or not. It is very useful. So it is a choice, but it's not the norm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, let's just go to some questions we've got here. Somebody here says, we are told by a Spanish agent that we shouldn't put an offer on a house until we were within 6 weeks of being able to move in, or we would lose the reservation fee. Is that correct? Does somebody want to take that one?
Go on, Joanne.
If you're with me, I'd be telling that agent to do one.
Everyone's nodding in agreement.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's you shouldn't put an offer in on a house until you're in a position to be able to move forward with the purchase and buy it. And if you do put an offer in on the house, it's cards on the table. You need to be very clear about what your offer is. So if it is dependent on a mortgage, or if it is dependent on residency or visas being issued, then that needs to be put on the table and put forward so that the seller of that property can make an informed decision whether they're going to accept or deny your offer, or reject your offer, sorry. However, if an agent's telling you shouldn't be able, what was it? You can't put in an offer unless you're 6 weeks.
Move in.
Yeah, interesting. Normally, it would take about 6 to 8 weeks for the conveyancing period and the purchase process to take place of a property over here. So to me, that sounds like typical unscrupulous agent pressure tactics. And you need someone like me, Rona, or Nigel on your side here to fight your corner, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks. Another one here. What are the pros and cons of buying new build over older properties? Obviously, generally speaking, that's going to be a sort of personal preference. Any comments there?
Yeah, we deal with quite a lot of both. New builds are going to give you something which is fashionable now, certainly in terms of the sort of more modern style of property, which is effectively fueled by probably the Belgian and the Dutch market and Germans, because they tend to live in houses like that as well. So you tend to get, certainly in the sort of southeastern corner, a lot of the sort of Ibiza style architecture too. And that's very fashionable. It rents out very well. You'd probably get a higher rent if you were going to be commercial and actually rent the property out if you bought something like that too. They're a bit more expensive than the older style properties, quite significantly so now. So again, it just depends on personal preference. What you'll tend to find is some of the more modern stuff has been now built further inland because the coast has almost been built up so much. So again, it might not be as close to the amenities that you might get with more classic style property, but generally, the property boom in a lot of the areas we deal with has been fueled by that sort of demand on that sort of property by Benelux buyers, Scandinavian buyers, and obviously by our British buyers as well. In different parts of Spain, obviously in Huelva, Portuguese borders, we've still got reasonably priced properties which are modern style properties as well, with sea views, etc. Obviously, in Costa Blanca South and Murcia, you've got properties which have probably gone up by 50-60%, quite quickly as well. So and so again, there's a difference there from what we've dealt with.
Right. Anything to add? Okay, let me just see the next question. So there's one here which sorry, well, the question is, it's not something we've heard before. We would be cash buyers, but I would need a non-lucrative visa. Husband will not. Well, I mean, yes, if you've got to have a non-lucrative visa, then that's not directly an issue here with the housing. Sorry. Just one
Sorry,
second.
Nigel, did that person say they would need a non-lucrative visa, but the husband wouldn't?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's quite ambiguous. They'd need to give us a little bit more information about that as to why the husband wouldn't, because a non-lucrative visa is issued as a residency visa, and if the husband is working so he doesn't want to get the visa, he's on shaky ground, because he can still be, if the Spanish authorities want to investigate, he would be classed as being a resident here because his wife holds a visa here as well. So that's something that they would need to book an appointment with one of us to talk about the individual residency.
Right. Okay, thanks. This one here, we're heading out here at the end of March, looking to move in July, August. Some people say that's a good timeline, but others have said it's too soon. So what's the panel's view on this?
Well, as Joanne says, generally speaking, the conveyancing takes about, from start to finish, about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. Obviously, it depends very much on the sort of deadline that is your lawyer puts on completion. But if that's definitely what you want to do, it's certainly doable. It's just a question of, if you found the right property that you're happy with, and you definitely want to buy it, then it is doable, and it's a reasonable timescale.
Right.
Most of the properties we sell are chain free. They tend not to be going any higher than the property that you're actually looking to buy. So if you've got a decent team in place, it shouldn't be too much of an ask for that to actually happen. So I mean, what you've got to remember is in August nothing happens, so you don't really want to try and complete in August because it's a disaster. So, and it's really hot, so you need to be on the beach in August and have completed in June or something. So that would be good.
Yeah. Okay, indeed. Certainly August is very quiet, shall we say, in terms of official limit. Okay, so there's one here. I guess this is for you, Nigel. We've seen a lot of properties recently in forgive the pronunciation, Moraleda de Satayona, near Granada. Is there a reason for this, and is it an area we should avoid, or is it nice? We're looking for an inland property, but nearish to a good centre.
Yeah, I've replied to that message just now. We'll find out. I think there was something about the area that came across my desk a couple of years ago that might sound that out, why there's quite a lot of properties on the market. Our team in Granada are based in Alhambra, Granada, which is a lovely Roman spa town, which has sort of got everything joined up, and it's really nice. It's not too far from anything. Again, the difficulty in Granada is that it can be really remote and not very well communicated, and it can be really high up too. So again, it could be really freezing too. So there's a few questions we need to answer there, but I'm very happy to get Lisa and Terry, our team in Alhambra, to come back to you on that. They'll definitely know. They'll probably say, "Oh, it's it's horrible," or "It's great," or whatever it might be. So we'll definitely find out for you.
Okay, thank you. And those are all the questions we have, apart from one, which is something we'll be covering at this stage anyway, and that is, how can people get in contact with you? So perhaps if you could each give your contact details, starting with Rona.
Yes, well, you can contact me through the website, which is propertyfinderspain.com. So it's Property Finder Spain with only one S in the middle, .org. Or you can call +34 664 700 799. That's +34 664 700 799. And the email address, which is a fairly long one because it's propertyfinderspain.org, starts with clients at. So that's basically where you can contact me.
Okay, thank you. Joanne.
Hi, sorry. So my website is Aldertons, ALDERTONS, aldertons.es. And you can contact me or Emma at or Joanne at aldertons.es. Happy to help. I've just replied privately to ISL with regards to the query by the NLV, because it turns out that her husband is Spanish, so she doesn't need an NLV. But for individual consultations with regards to visas and residency, happy to sit down and have a one-on-one with you, completely free of charge. Just give us a call and we'll put you on the right path. But yeah, happy to just join us on aldertons.es and we'll answer any queries or invite you to our gorgeous area.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. And Nigel, finally.
Yeah, so I'll spell the English version of it because nobody can say Girasol. So it's GIRASOL homes.com. And if you contact me at nigel@girasolhomes.com, and basically, yeah, there's many ways to contact me on there too. And we're obviously, whichever area you're looking in, which we cover, we're happy to help you.
Okay, yes. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joanne, Rona, Nigel, and thank you all for listening. One of the things I'd just like to finish off by saying, again, if you need to contact me or get hold of any of these, you can always get us at expats@expatnetwork.com. We organise discovery tours, which will sort of enable you to get a tailored tour of the area that you're looking in. This is not about covering the whole of Spain. It's about, when you've got to the point where you're ready to move in a specific area, even though you may want to go, you want to go to, say, the Javier, the Alta Marina area, then Marina Alta, sorry. You want to know where the specific areas are, the different urbanizations. What are they? Which ones are going to have lots of dog noise? Which ones are going to have lots of holiday homes? Which one is it that's got a problem with the internet? I can tell you a couple of those. Those we think you hope will find useful when you're ready to move. They're without any obligation, but obviously the providers, which are the three people you see here, do want to provide you with a service, and any terms of that will be agreed in advance before you make the move. So thank you all, thank you, and we'll call an end to it there. Thank you.
Thank you.